Okay, we're going to start talking about Tier 2 Manager. This is our online reporting program, and this is an off-the-shelf program that was customized for Michigan, so there are other states that use it. If you report in other states, Illinois, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Delaware, I'm not sure where else, New York, I think they use it. The program this year was rewritten on a new platform, and it includes new data elements, so things look a lot differently. All reports have to be entered in this online program. Now, just to let you know, I told you I was trying to get ready for all of this. I had to get the guidebook written back in December, and I didn't have the program, so I used screenshots from the contractor's website, and then they changed the program. So some of the screenshots that you see in Chapter 3 aren't going to be exactly what you see when you get into the program, but it's close enough. Different this year is that there is just one location for the website. In the past, for the 3 different modules, we had 3 different locations. Now there's one location, and depending on your permissions, you will go into the Submit as reporters. Planning and response people, those are LEPCs and fire departments, will go into the planning and response module, and then there's an administration module that Tanya and I use. New this year, we have 2 more counties that are online. So Genesee and Washtenaw County have joined Ingham, Kent, Oakland, Ottawa, and Wayne counties. So these counties, if you have facilities in any of these counties, you simply need to submit the report online, and the fire department and LEPC will get that report online. So you don't have to make any hard copies of them. We've got 3 types of reports: Tier 2 report annual, Tier 2 report annual revision, and Tier 2 report update. So you do your annual report, that's for the previous full calendar year. You screw that up, you do a revision, an annual revision. The update is for any changes that happen after the annual report. So you're going to use your update to keep the data current. Here's the different reports. Under Section 312 of SARA Title III, you do an annual hazardous chemical inventory. The online report will be the Tier 2 report annual, or the revision if you screw it up and have to revise it. Annual report is due by March 1st. Under Section 311, that's your initial hazardous chemical inventory. Instead of doing a separate report, you're going to do a Tier 2 report update. You bring a new chemical on site, you update your Tier 2 report. If you brought that new chemical on site, you have 3 months to do this. So if you brought that new chemical on site, let's say in November, then just include it on your annual report. You don't need to do anything else. Just add it to the annual report that you submit in January. And then we have the Section 302, that's for the emergency planning notification. That's your extremely hazardous substances. And again, you have 60 days to meet that deadline. If you have an extremely hazardous substance that exceeds the threshold planning quantity, just include it on your update report, or if it's already there, it will be included on the annual report. Everything for Section 302 is now part of the Tier 2 report. Yes?
On the one where it talks about the Tier 2 update, if during the year you have something that you always had, let's say also you start exceeding 10,000, is that where you would use that?
Okay, the question is, if you've got a chemical that's always been on site, but then maybe in June you bump up production and you now exceed the threshold and you have to start reporting, would you do that? Would you include that on the update report? Yes. Because as soon as you exceed the threshold, that's when you normally would do the 311 report. Now you'll do an update report and start including it. Each reporter should have only one account. Regardless of the number of facilities you have, it would all be under one account. The administrator can move a facility, that would be Tanya or me, we can move a facility from one account to another. But a facility cannot be under two people's accounts at the same time. So if you have a boss who likes to look over your shoulder and wants to be in the program with you to make sure you're doing it right, just say no. Consultants must have their own account. If you use a consultant, don't give them your account. They should have their own account as a consultant. If you have a facility and you want a consultant to do the report, then you have to give us permission to put that facility under the consultant's account. What's new for 2014? Lots of things are new, and page 18 in your guidebook has a whole list of everything, but you don't need to go to that. One thing that you're going to have to do, all reports are going to have to include a Tier 2 report contact. Right now, we know who the submitter is. If you have the account, the person who owns the account, that's the person who's actually sitting at the computer to submit the report. And if you're submitting the report and your name isn't on the account, you're going to change it so that I know who's submitting it. Because if I see on my side, if I see that maybe you've submitted the wrong report or there's some confusion as to how to do it, I will contact you to help you out with whatever you need help with on that report. But the Tier 2 report contact, that's the person who actually knows what chemicals are at the facility that can actually verify the information in the Tier 2 report. Very often, the submitter and the Tier 2 report contact are the same, but sometimes they're not. Your Tier 2 report contact, that's usually the person that would sign the report. They're the ones that can verify the information. Also, new this year, if your facility is subject to Section 302, then you're going to put the information about the emergency coordinator in your Tier 2 report. That's the person that will work with the LEPC to develop the off-site emergency response plan. There are new range codes this year. They cover a smaller range. And so when I wrote presentation, when I wrote it 3 weeks ago, all chemicals had to be edited, and now the contractor has changed that, so the new range codes are put in there automatically without having to edit the chemicals. But you should go into the chemicals anyway to make sure the data are correct. New this year also, program-generated emails will be sent to the user email address. That's the person who has the account. In the past, those emails were going to the facility email address. Now they will go to your address. If you're putting in the information, you submit a report, you're going to get the notice that that report has been submitted. This is where you go to access the program, and I'm going to come back to this in a minute. One thing, I don't have slides with screenshots because I didn't have the program early enough to include those here. But this information is kind of important. Every facility that was in our database when we migrated to the new program a couple of weeks ago, for every facility there is a 2013 Tier 2 report update that has been completed. So you'll see this update report's been completed. That is not your annual report. That simply contains all of the information that was migrated forward that you are going to use to do your annual report. That's what you're going to be editing essentially. You're not going to do anything with this update report, however. So if you haven't made any changes since your 2012 report, then your 2000 update will look just like your 2012. If you made changes since then, it will incorporate all of those changes up until the day before we did the migration. And then to do a report, you're going to click on a button that says Add a New Annual Revision Update Report. So you're going to see how this is done. I'm going to escape out of here. And I have to go, my default browser is Internet Explorer 8. And the new program is not going to work in Internet Explorer 8. So I downloaded Firefox, and I also did it with Google Chrome. It works with either of those. I downloaded those to use as alternate browsers. Don't set it as your default or you'll run into trouble. So I'll click on the hazardous chemical inventory and then my brown button here. New this year, forgot username. If you get to this point and you're going through your papers, you can't find your username, don't register again. Just click on forgot username. It will ask you your name, your email, your phone number, and then if the program finds a match in the database for that information, it will send an email to the admin side. Tanya and I will look at it, we'll find your username, and we will email it back to you through the program. If it doesn't find a match, then contact us through that DEQ SARA mailbox. If you forgot your password, click here. It will ask you questions and you can reset your password. And yes, we know the program's slow.
What did you say if you can't find a match?
To send an email to DEQ-SARA, and then Tanya and I will get back to you and tell you what your username is. Okay, here's the screen you come to when you first log in. And again, here are the counties that can receive your reports online. I can go up to this tab to get my list of facilities. Here's my account. This is what I want all of you to do when you first get in there, is go to my account and click on Update My Profile. And make sure that this information is current. I get so many emails that come back as undeliverable because you guys have a bad email address in here. So make sure this information is current. If you're including your phone number, if you have an extension, just put X with your extension on there so that I can get to you when I need to contact you. You can change your secret question and secret answer here, and no, milking cows is not my favorite hobby. I did it one time, just once. The nice thing about the way it's set up here is that if you're taking over from somebody who's left the company on good terms, so they've given you their sign-in information, you can then log in with their username and password, and you can go in here and you can change all of this, including the hint question, So if later on you forget your password, you know what your hint question is and the answer. So go ahead and make sure that you update your profile. I want to go back here to this home screen because there's another thing on here that's new this year. Sure. Okay, if they did not leave the company on good terms and you don't know, then send an email to DEQ-SARA. Let us know what company you are reporting for and just say you're taking over reporting and we'll help get you set up. Okay, here's something else new. It's down here a facility status summary and it's got active and inactive. If you're reporting for multiple facilities and perhaps a couple of years ago, one of those facilities, you really dropped production and so it didn't have to report anymore and you made it inactive. Now you've bumped up the production again, you want to start reporting. Anything that's under your account that's inactive will be here. You can click on it, you can make it active, and you can start reporting. So you used to have to contact us to make that active. Now you can do it yourself. You can see who's there, who's inactive. So I'm going to go into my list of facilities here. These are my active facilities. And if this list is not correct, if you're supposed to have more facilities, less facilities, whatever, contact Tanya or me at the DEQ-SARA mailbox. Let us know and we'll get the right facilities out here for you. So if you don't see something, if you don't see a facility, please don't add it. Ask us first, because if it's already in the database and you add it, we're going to delete what you added. So you're going to waste a lot of time. I'm going to click on my new facility here, Susan's Dairy, plus the milking cows. You like that? Yeah. Okay. When you go into your facility, you're going to see Tier 2 reports, 302 reports, and 311 reports. The 302 reports and 311 reports, that's for historic knowledge only. You can go in there under View, but you can't do anything with them. They're just there because they were submitted in the past and we're not getting rid of them. Everything you do now is going to be a version of the Tier 2 report. Here's my 2013 Tier 2 report update. It says it's completed, no signature. That's the report that contains the data that were migrated into the new program here as the current. So to do a new report, I'm going to click up here on this button that says Add a New Annual Revision Update Report. When you click on that, then you come to this screen. It says choose a report type, and it's already chosen for you because in Michigan we just have one report type. Other states are still requiring 3 different reports. So I think we're ahead of the game on that. So everything's going to be a Tier 2 report, but you will either do the annual report, or you could revise an annual report or an update report. And right now, you should all be doing the annual report for 2013. So I'm going to click on annual. And the other thing I want you to notice is that if I click the down arrow, I could also do an annual for 2011. I can't do a 2012 because I already did that one. But I didn't do a 2011. So if there's a report in the past that you missed doing, you can just go in here and pick it up and do it. You no longer have to ask permission to do an annual report. You no longer have to ask permission to do a revision. You just go in and do it if you need to. So I'm doing an annual. I'm going to click Proceed. Remember, your update report, you would only do that after you've done your annual if you have changes this year. All right, when I go into my report, you're going to see these exclamation points here. That means that there are still data missing for those steps. And what I want to do here, I'm going to contract my steps so that you can see them all. Step 1 is review your facility information. Step 2 is the chemical inventory. Step 3, review subject to status. This is new because we've got new fields about whether or not you're subject to certain regulations. Step 4, review contacts. There are new contacts that you're going to have to put in here. Step 5, review attachments. That was there before. And then step 6, submit the report. And you will not be able to submit the report if any of these data fields are not completed. So I'm going to expand step 1. And here's some of my basic information under step 1. Everybody's going to have to edit under step 1. So I'm going to click edit. How many people did this report last year? Quite a few of you. Okay. And when you got to the facility information, you had one screen that had a whole lot of information on it. And sometimes you had trouble getting through everything before it would time out on you. So now we've got 3 different tabs up here: location, nature of business, owner, operator, and mailing address. So I'm under the location and nature of business. I've got my address in here. One thing I'd like you to do, just as a double check, is if you click on Get Coordinates in Decimal Degrees, it will bring up the location on a Google map. And as you can see here, my location, my dairy is right in the intersection here. Kind of a rough place for the cattle to be. So I can drag this over to where it's actually located. And when I drag it, what you see is that the latitude and longitude up here change. So once I have this in the right place, do you see how that changes? Once I have it in the right place, then I just say pick this location and the latitude and longitude populate here. This is important because the planning and response module has a GIS component. So when your responders and planners, when they pull this up, they'll pull up your facility, it'll be on a map, and it shows you where your facility is relative to the schools and the daycare centers and the hospitals and all of that. So we want to make sure that we've got your facility in the right location. Another thing new this year is some of the facilities really do have 2 fire departments that respond on a regular basis. So if you have other firefighters, fire departments responding, you can fill that in down here. NAICS code, North American Industry Classification System code, that tells what kind of an industry it is. And if I have a code, that code actually covers a lot of variations on the industry. So now what we've asked you to do is just put in a very short description of your industry under nature of business. So I put milk production here. Another new field, manned or unmanned. We've got a lot of facilities that are unmanned, so if it's unmanned, you just check that it's unmanned. If it's manned, then the maximum number of occupants at one time must be completed. A lot of people have asked, what do we mean by maximum number of occupants? How do I determine that? Remember that this is for your fire department. So if I've got one building, the fire department will have told me what the maximum number of occupants are. And so you don't want the fire department to have to come in and look at that number. They just use that number and put it in there. Tell them how many occupants you can have. If you have multiple buildings or only one building has chemicals or you have a big campus, use your best judgment as to the best way to answer this in terms of what the maximum number of occupants are. Usually we're talking about where the chemicals are located. If in doubt, ask your fire department what would be most useful for them to have in here as a piece of information.
If our facility runs 3 shifts, would we be taking the highest quantity of employees on that, the biggest shift?
If the facility runs shifts, would you take the highest number of employees on a certain shift? That's not necessarily the maximum number of occupants. Down here is where it has number of full-time employees. But maximum number of occupants in the building, if you've got 3 shifts and they're different sizes, obviously the biggest one is going to be what you could have maximum, or at least closest to it. You might have the president and his entourage walking through, so then you could have even more occupants in there. So I think that's why they're looking at maximum number of occupants. Okay, I'm going to go to the next tab here. If you click save, it'll automatically go to the next tab. I'm not going to save, I'm just going to go to the next one. That conversion tool, the latitude and longitude have to be in decimal degrees. So if you don't have it in decimal degrees, if you have degrees, minutes, seconds, then you want to use the conversion tool for that. Owner operator. And on this screen, we've got the facility contact information here because this is what we always required in the past. It's no longer required that you have that information because over here under owner operator, we have an email address for the owner operator here. So the owner operator, that should be a person. If it's not, if it's Ford Motor Company, that would be parent company. You could put parent company down here, but give me the name of a person that has an email address here for your owner operator. Parent company, these are new fields that are required to be in the form by EPA, but they are not required for you to fill out. Fill it out though if it makes sense. Mailing address. Oh, and just a note about owner operator. How many of you have, let's say your owner operator is outside of Michigan? Some of you? Okay, right now there's a glitch in the program. We've got a patch coming that you could put in Delaware and you save it and it goes back to Michigan. It really likes Michigan a lot. And if you have a state that starts with the letter A, you're not going to find it on the drop down, but that's being fixed. Yeah, Alaska doesn't exist, or Alabama.
But they don't have any kind of border to Michigan. Maybe that's what the thinking was.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, mailing address. Most of you won't need to do anything with this because we pulled in what you had for the mailing address on the other form. So I'm going to, if I save this, it would take me back to the report. I'm just going to go back to the report here. Step 2 is the chemicals. Import chemicals, you can use that if you've got multiple facilities. and you've already reported a chemical on another facility, you can import chemicals into this one. But here's where you would add new chemicals, and down here for your existing chemicals, you can edit them or delete them here. I want to look at, we're going to edit the chlorinated alkaline cleaner. Yes. Yeah. Question was, did the chemicals populate from the previous report? Yes. Everything you had in there previously is in here. Again, for your chemicals, you see we've got two tabs, one for chemical description, one for inventory and storage. And what I've got here, I've got a chemical, I've called it the chlorinated alkaline cleaner. And I attached an MSDS, and I'm going to look at this MSDS. This is called Fanzite. And what you see for my chemical, the name of the chemical is Fanzite, but the generic identification is powdered chlorinated alkaline cleaner. When you're doing your chemical name, if I wrote Fanzite in there, I can pretty much guarantee nobody in here would know what I was talking about. Not a clue. But when I put chlorinated alkaline cleaner, you had some sort of an idea as to what we're talking about. So don't put in the trade name, put in the generic name for the substance. So here I had the chlorinated alkaline cleaner that I put in there. And this is a good one to attach an MSDS because it gives you more details about it. If you have gasoline, I don't want an MSDS. I've seen lots of MSDSs for gasoline. So just attach MSDSs if you think that it's something that's going to increase the knowledge of whoever's reviewing the report. And then down here, this is where I've got my mixture components that I put in there. If I want to keep something, oh, not this one, hang on. This is my mixture components. Let me go over here, inventory and storage. Inventory and storage. Here's some new fields in here. Maximum amount in the largest container. Again, another field that's going to help your planners or responders. It's not required information, but if I have one big tank and some smaller canisters, I have the total amount on site, but the big tank, if that fails, I want to know what the maximum amount is in the largest container. And also storage locations, I can have the amount at a certain location. So if I've got something in two different buildings, I can say how much is in this building versus how much is in the other building. Again, more information to help planners and responders. If it's confidential, let me show you what happens. Let's say I've got my carboy here and I want to edit it. I'm going to click on edit. And when I click edit, it's still up here, but it took that information and it populated it down here. So now it's down here where I can edit it. And I could change anything here. I could say, well, my carboy is pressurized, and I could say I want to keep the location confidential. So I could mark that, say update list. And now confidential location has changed to a yes, and here's my pressurized. So, and then I'll save that. Do I want to add a new chemical? Yes, actually I do. I'm going to add a new chemical. I'm going to add one of your favorite chemicals.
Is there some chemicals that you suggest that we keep confidential as far as their location? Like if people had ammonia and things like that might be of interest to bad people, should they keep them confidential? Or?
Yeah, Question is, are there certain things that you should keep confidential? Ammonia, yes, we have a huge problem with theft. It's not as bad now because they figured out something else they can use to make their meth. But it's still, I would keep that confidential. Now, let's say I've got a 40,000 gallon storage tank with propane. Is that a terrorist target? 40,000 gallon propane tank? Is that a terrorist target? Yeah. Would I want to keep it confidential? Yeah. Is everybody going to see it when they drive by? Yeah. So everybody knows it's there. So there's no reason to keep that confidential. But if I have methyl ethyl bad stuff in my storage room and I don't want people to know where it is, I would keep that confidential. When you keep something confidential, you are required to allow the public to know what you have, how much of it you have, and what the hazards are. But where and how you store it can be kept confidential. Okay, I'm going to add batteries. And my batteries, I don't have a CAS number for them, so I'm going to put in N/A as in not available. Chemical name. I can't type. Lead acid batteries. I can put on it, if I've just brought on my batteries and I'm doing this for my Section 311 report, my initial report, I can put in the date the chemical was added to site. And so I added this back in 2013. I added it in November. And so I just choose the date and it's in there. So now I know when I added the batteries to my site. Select my hazards, reactivity for the acid, immediate, acute, delayed, chronic for the lead. I don't need an MSDS for batteries because I've already seen them. Batteries have a solid component and a liquid component, and they are a mixture. Now it says a mixture component is mandatory. If you check that, they're going to remove that box there. It is not mandatory if it doesn't contain an EHS. For instance, you could mark gasoline as a mixture, but we don't need to see all the mixture components in gasoline. We've seen those before. So don't fill out the components for gasoline. Right now, you've got the EHS name up here, and does the mixture contain an EHS? This says no, this is blank. Just leave it. Just leave that alone. Don't do anything with it. We're going to go right down here. When I said mixture, it opened up this add mixture component. And what I want to do is I'm going to use my search by CAS chemical name because I don't know my CAS numbers. That's chemical abstract service number. And I've got lead in my battery, so I want to report the lead. And I just want to show you what happens if I put in lead right here and say search. It brings up every darn thing that has lead in it. So I've got 305 results. Pretty useless. So what I want you to do is over here is a little magnifying glass. It says filter. Click on that and say where chemical starts with lead. And now I do my search, and there's my lead. So I click on the lead, and it puts in the lead, it puts in the CAS number. It knows that it is not an EHS, so that's not checked. And my percentage of lead, anybody remember what we have as a percentage for lead in batteries? 66, like 2/3, okay? And I'm going to say update mixture component list. And we wait. There we go. So here's my lead up here at 66%. Okay, the other component I want to put in here is sulfuric acid. So I'm going to click on my magnifying glass. Chemical starts with sulfuric acid. Say search. And I pick that first one there, and it populates it. Now put in the CAS number, the chemical name. It checked the box that says EHS, and it says EHS name is sulfuric acid. What's my percentage? 11%. And I'm going to update mixture component list. So now what happened, besides updating this little button up here, does the mixture contain an EHS, change to yes. All right, so it knows it contains an EHS. All right, this does not equal 100%. It doesn't need to. You can be over 100%. Because if you have a range, you should report the highest amount in the range. So you have the potential for exceeding 100% there. I'm going to save this. And now I go to my inventory and storage. So my batteries, I had 5,400 pounds. I put in the 5,400 there, and the amount code sets itself. Remember, we have different amount codes now, so that sets itself. I could do the maximum amount largest container, but I'm not going to. I'm going to put 5,400 here for the average amount for my batteries. Again, the amount code sets itself. Number of days on site, 365. Maximum amount, you all know what that means. What's the most that's ever on site at one time? Average amount, don't do any fancy calculations. It's just on an average day, approximately how much do you have on site. So if you have a gas tank and you fill it up and you empty it out and fill it up and empty it out, on average, how full is it? Don't do all the calculations, the math to figure it out. Storage location. So my batteries, this is new this year, we have words instead of codes. So I'm going to say it's not one of those, it's other. My batteries are actually located in forklifts. And they are at ambient pressure and ambient temperature. Isn't that nice? We have words now. I don't want to keep my batteries confidential, so I'm not going to check that. But my forklifts then are located in the dairy barn. Okay. And it'd be nice if I could spell it. Okay. Here's another thing. There's a latitude and longitude for the location. Right now, we haven't been using that, but now that we have it available, you could enter that if you wanted to, and it might be down the road that that would become of more interest, especially if you have a very large facility. That would be nice to have. So I'm just going to save that. I can add as many storage locations. Oops. I forgot to update it. Hang on. Do I want to add more? Update. Oh, my lead acid batteries are there. Let me look at my lead acid batteries a second. I can put in as many locations as I want. Okay, it picked up my location. Here's what I want to show you here on my lead acid batteries. Do you remember I put in my amount was 5,400 pounds, and we put in the percentages. The program then took those percentages and turned them into numbers. So I had 11% sulfuric acid, that's 594 pounds. Pretty close to that 600 pounds that we calculated when we did the example earlier. So it does all these calculations, and then if I have sulfuric acid in another mixture, it will add them together to see if I've exceeded my my threshold for section 302. Yes. Every time you do a different container type, you do a different entry for the storage location. You can put on as many as you want. Yes. You're going to get that initially because when you first go into your program, it's going to say validating because it's trying to determine what you have and what you don't have. Once you get past that validation the first time for a facility, you're not going to get that anymore. How many chemicals do you have? It shouldn't take that long. No, it should not take that long. So I don't know what to say. Except sometimes it's a little slow. Yeah, it could be the connection here. I was having problems here on wireless. Okay, next part of your report here is the review subject to status. Everybody's going to have to edit that. And you're going to find that for section 302, it's hardwired in. I enter that on our side. Most of you are subject to section 302. We've got some farms and some warehouse facilities that are not subject to, did I say 312? That are not subject to 312 but are subject to 302, so they're in our database here. So this one, for most of you, it's going to say yes. The section 302 status, that again, it's a grayed out box. I can't change it. And that is based on what you reported. The program did that calculation. If you think the calculation is wrong, then let me know. I'll review it, and I can always make the change on my side. Here's the new one. Clean Air Act Section 112R, Risk Management Program. Are you subject to this? Yes or no? You have to answer this. So you remember in that first presentation, I told you that there was a big nexus with the Clean Air Act 112R. EPA wants to know if you're subject. If you don't know, don't just say, no, you're not subject and move on, because at some point, EPA might look at your inventory and say, hey, I think this facility might be subject. I'm going to check them out. So you want to check that out for yourself. And the first thing I would do is go to your list of lists where it's got that column for the Clean Air Act Section 112R threshold quantity. And if you have any of those chemicals in those amounts, then you might be subject. If you determine that you're probably subject to this, and you want to avoid penalties for not reporting previously, then what I'd like you to do is look in Chapter 1, go to page 1-7. Page 1-7 is EPA's audit policy and self-disclosure. And this is designed so that you can self-audit, disclose violations, and then correct those violations in a timely fashion. And if you meet all of their criteria, then your penalty can be mitigated up to 100%. So it's a pretty good deal. And Jim will work with you on that if that's the situation. So if you go into this book, if you go online into this book, those links there that are in light color, like the audit policy, there's an actual link to the audit policy if you go online to that book. So you have to mark if you're subject to RMP or not, and this one I'm not subject, so I put a no in there. And then the next question is, are you subject to Section 313? That's the toxic chemical release inventory. And maybe I've figured that I'm subject to that, but the TRI facility ID maybe has not yet been assigned because EPA assigns that. I can put in an NA because it's not yet available and then change that at a later date. To determine if you're subject to Section 313, there are some flow charts, applicability flow charts in Chapter 1 of the guidebook, and then Chapter 4 has a longer description of Section 313 to see if you're subject to that. But again, that one, remember, it only applies to certain types of facilities. If you don't have 10 full-time employees, you're not subject. Are you still validating up there? I would get out of it and try again. The next part, step 4, is to review the report contacts. And this is divided into 2 sections. The ones at the top here, these are ones that you already filled out when you did step 1. So this should be fine. But the second section, everybody's going to have to do. So I'm going to click on edit for this emergency contacts. This is where you're going to put in your Tier 2 contact. And if you've got multiple facilities or you've got contacts in your database already, I can do a pick. And if the person is already there, just click on them and that information will populate if you already have it in there. And again, you have to have the email address here. So you put in the email address for the Tier 2 contact. Emergency coordinator. There's an asterisk here. This is all asterisk because my facility is subject to Section 302. If the facility isn't subject to Section 302, you don't need to do it. But if it is, then I have to have my emergency coordinator, so I'm going to fill in that information for the emergency coordinator. And again, email address is needed for that. I went to the wrong one here. There's my emergency coordinator. Okay. Emergency contacts. You're going to have to add an email for each of your emergency contacts. So all emergency contacts have to have an email. Are you starting to see that there's lots of email addresses required? They're all required by regulation, so they are all available under FOIA. If you're doing like some of the reporters are doing and they say, well, I'm not computer savvy, and they use their kid's email address, you might want to consider getting a Gmail address. Okay, next one is review attachments. And before I can do anything with this, if I want to add or remove, I'm going to click on edit. So this is where I can add attachments or remove them. The site plan that we're looking at here, this is a site map. And it is optional, but we would like you to include it. Let me show you what I've got here. Open with, what do I want to open this with? I think I have to pick one of these to open. It's a JPEG. Somebody told me what it was.
Windows picture.
This one?
Yep.
Thank you. There we are. Okay, there's my site map that I've got. It's kind of nice because you can go to Google, you can capture the map there, and then you can label it. So that's what I did. I just captured it, I labeled it. But I also put a label on it. I just put a stamp on there that says confidential, because I've got confidential location information that I've reported. I've included confidential location, so I can keep my map confidential. And even if none of your locations are confidential, you can still keep your map confidential. You're allowed to do that, which means that we don't give it out to anybody. It does go to the responders and the planners, your LEPCs and fire departments, and they get it, but it will not go to the public. Before you submit the report, I'm down to step 6 now to submit. And right now I can't do it because there's information I haven't saved. Some of the stuff I updated I didn't save. So I'm not going to be allowed to, because you see under step 1 I'm missing information up here. But before you submit your report, you can add notes to it. And the notes field is different this year than it was in the past. In the past, if I put a note on my Tier 2 report today, and then I pulled up the report that I submitted in 2008, those notes would show up on that report. And we said, no, we don't want that to happen. So now the notes that you put on the report will show up on that report and only that report. So if you're doing an update report where you're adding a new chemical or you're taking a chemical off or whatever, add a note just explaining why you're doing that report. Then when you send the report to your LEPC and fire department, don't include a cover sheet. That's just paper they don't need. All they need is the report. Anything extra that they need to be told, you'll put that in the notes. Okay. I can, if you're doing this report and your boss wants to review it, somebody else is going to certify it, then you want them to look at the report before you put their name in there. And when I click on print, it's going to ask me, do I want to see the report with or without the confidential information? So I'm going to say I want it with the confidential information. And now you see that there's a lot more information that shows up here on the top. We'll go down to the chemicals. And right here I've got a chemical. Here's my anhydrous ammonia. And I've got a confidential location here. And the information is listed. It says where and how it's stored, but everything says confidential underneath it. So that way, if I'm going to print it without the confidential location information, all it's going to say is confidential across there. And this way, I won't accidentally give this report out to the public with confidential information included, because it says it right on there. The other thing new this year is that when I have mixture components, they're going to show up right under the chemical to which they apply, or under the substance to which they apply. In the past, all the mixture components were at the end of the report. So I had a whole list of different sets of mixture components. That didn't make a lot of sense. Any notes that you put on are going to be down here at the end of your report. Close out of that. Okay, I'm going to go back to my submissions here a minute. On my submissions page, right here you see I haven't yet submitted, so if I need to go back into the report to finish it up, I'll just click on Tier 2 Report Annual, and I can finish it up. If I have a facility that is no longer subject to reporting, don't just stop reporting. Go over here and change the facility status. Somebody was asking about that. So if I change the status of the facility to inactive, then I have to choose a reason. It's below threshold, it's closed, location changed, or others. And I'll put in whatever date that happened on. So change the date whenever it became inactive or didn't have to report. So you would do that to make it inactive. I'm not going to make this one inactive. The other thing I want to show you here is that for any reports that are completed, so once you complete your 2013 report, you can go over here to View, and you're going to have some other options under View that you didn't have before. Do you remember when we were in the initiated report, I could print it. Once it's completed, you're also going to have the option to email the report. So if I click on Email, and I'm going to say I want to send it with confidential, there's a From up here, and I can choose whether I want it to come from the company email, the facility email, or the user email. So I've got a choice there. There's a To. One of the Tos is to the state. Don't send it to us, please. We get all of these online. I'm going to have this changed in the program because I don't want the state to be up there. But I can click on Other, and I can put in, I've tried it with 2 addresses. I think I can put in more than that. So I could put in my own address, somebody else's. I could email it to whoever I want to. I just fill in the address here. I could send it to James Ensminger in EPA. Okay, and put in the subject and the message, and then just click Send. And it goes to whoever that is. So the question has come up, can I email it to my LAPC and my fire department? I actually had one LAPC that found out about this and said, can you tell everybody to email the reports to us? So some of the LAPCs would like that. Others want their report in hard copy because they have to have it in hard copy and they don't want to be responsible for filing or for printing all of the reports. During the next year, I'm going to be talking with LAPCs, and I'm going to get a better handle on who wants them in the future or not. But right now, go ahead and ask them if you can email it to them rather than mailing it to them. Because the nice thing about an email is you have a receipt right there that you did it, which is really nice to have. But don't email it to me, please. Okay, any questions? Yes, sir.
If we're not subject to the SARA Title II anymore, we've never been online, If somebody did reports and created an account,
If you're not subject to tier 2 and you've never been online, so maybe you were subject back before?
well, calculations were done in the error that put us into like batteries. They calculated the whole weight of the battery and it's barely put us up. And we also had a circuit board building process installed.
Okay, so you're not sure if your report is in the database or not.
So anybody actually they take a frame report, we've never reported on one.
If you reported in paper prior to 2007, then we keyed in all those reports back then, and we've populated the database with it. But if you reported in paper after that, I don't think you're in there, but check with us to make sure.
Now, the second question, we are in one of the counties that just added.
Uh-huh.
So do we have to go here so they get their 302 report online?
If you're subject to 302, the 302 report is now part of the Tier 2 report. So if you're only subject to 302 and you're not subject to Tier 2 reporting, you're going to do a Tier 2 report that contains that 302 information. In the past, the 302 report simply says, I'm subject, here's my emergency plan. And we found that there were a lot of facilities that weren't subject because they didn't give us the information we needed to know if they were subject. So now we're asking you to give us more information about who you are, where you're located, what the chemical is, and how much you have, because that's all information the LEPC needs anyway.
Well, earlier on you said that what standard are we using though for 302? Are we using the DEQ standard, the state standard, because our township asked for lower quantities to be reported?
Oh, you're a Washtenaw County.
I mean, yeah. No, they're good. We don't have
Okay.
trouble with them. We talk to them all the time before. I just want to make sure we do it right.
Okay, Washtenaw County they have lower thresholds for reporting to the county so that they can collect fees, right? But that isn't necessarily a Tier 2 report. So I think that they have you report those on a separate report, don't they? Yeah. Okay, so that's between you and the county. That's not this report. That's a little bit different. I think that's through the health department. Yeah, that's a little different. Now, your fire department, he says their fire department wants to know if they have 5 gallons of something. The fire department can ask you to report something on the Tier 2 report, even at 5 gallons. So that's up to them. If they want that on the Tier 2 report, then that's where you would do it, is online. But just clarify with them, because again, the fire departments have that Bulletin 9, and that's different. That does have lower thresholds. But if they want to throw those thresholds into the Tier 2 report process, they have the right to do that. Yeah. Yeah, clarify with the fire department what they want. Yes, sir.
You said a follow-up to that question, if they are asking for your report quantities that wouldn't normally be triggered for this report, is there a way to designate that it's not something you're putting on that?
If the fire department is asking you to report a quantity that is lower than the quantity on here, than the 10,000 pounds, is there a way to mark it saying we're reporting it because the fire department asked us to? The quantity that the fire department asks you to report is a legal quantity that's actually in the regulation. 0. 0 is the threshold for reporting in response to requests. So if they are requiring you to report it, then it's not something outside of the regulation. That is what's required in the regulation.
So the report of quantity is designated as 0 then?
The threshold for reporting in response to requests is 0. So if the fire department wants it on there, and I can't imagine most fire departments don't want the tier 2 report filled with a lot of garbage about, I mean, just a 5-gallon can of gasoline, things like that. Most of them are not interested in that. They're interested in the larger amounts because this is a report that if there's an incident, they can look at this report and in an instant see what you have. And they don't want to be bogged down with a whole lot of details about little tiny bits of stuff here or there, the other place. I know when I first started here, are there any lawyers in here? I had a lawyer that submitted a report. You know how lawyers sometimes they really go into a lot of detail. This report, it came all bound and it was 2 inches thick. And it actually reported the saccharin in the lunchroom. I mean, absolutely everything. And it had all this steel, and it was a dry cleaners. These were the hangers that they were reporting. I mean, it's just, it was useless, really useless. So, you know, be reasonable about these things. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Didn't register with me where in our new report, where if you add a location or a different kind of storage container, I see where we change it when they're already in there. Where was that? What do we click on if you want to add a location to a material that's already there?
Okay, I'm going to go into, all right, I'm in this report. Let's say I go into my ammonia here. Oh, I clicked on the wrong part. Hang on just a minute. Oh, that's not going to work. Back to chemical list. I can't do the back arrow. I forgot about that. Okay. Oh, I'm not in edit. Just a minute. I have to get into an edit mode. I'll show you. Okay, I'm going to go into my Tier 2 annual report. And by the way, while I'm here, if you start a report and then realize you haven't yet submitted it and you realized you weren't supposed to do it, you were doing the wrong report, you can go down here to the very bottom and you can cancel the report. And that will get rid of it completely, as long as it hasn't been submitted. So let me go into my ammonia under edit. And I go to inventory and storage tab. And right now I've got 2 locations. I just add another storage location. So I just go here and add and put in the location, some room, okay, and update to list. And there it is. Okay, so it's pretty easy. Just add whatever you want here, or if you edit, it drops it down here so you can edit it in that location. Any other questions? Yes. They will know. Right at the moment, remember I told you there were 3 modules within this, and the planning response module is not working right now, so right now they can't see it. But once we get that working, we've got a number of the fire departments, even in the new counties, have gone online. And if they're not going online, they should. That's where they should be getting it. So if they're saying they're not getting it,
Well, I'm just saying they're listed, so now the thing is, we're not gonna send people to. Now, before we mail it, we know they got it, now you just do it, you submit it to you, and you just hope they go out there and get it.
yes, you hope they go out and get it. We hope that they hold up their side of it, yes. Yeah, and they will be getting training on this, the new ones that are online, once we get everything up and running. Any other questions?
I have a question. If I had a vendor that came onto my site and he brought a compound that either I didn't have or something that I had but elevated me to another higher amount, and it was going to use that, say, diesel fuel or something like that, do I have to report that amount that he brought on too, or?
Okay, are you responsible for maintaining the safety data sheet for that? For what he brought on site?
Yes.
You are?
I'd probably say yes. Yeah. Then it would have to be. Yeah.
Then it would be included.
That's what I thought.